All right, looks like we're live. I'm going to continue on my testing of the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. We've so far tested. Basically, I'm looking at the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons in context of their grouping at 500 gold precisely, to really try to understand how they fit in within that group, and to ultimately demonstrate their weaknesses and their need to have another look in terms of rebalancing them. Now, we've tested them against all the other units in that 500 gold category, meaning the High Elf Spearmen, which is really what led this off, is that they lose to the High Elf Spearmen. Tested them against Nasty Skulkers, which they lose to Nasty Skulkers. Tested them against the Marauders with great weapons, they would lose to them. Tested them against the Polearms, they lose to them. I mean, these are units that they should do. They should lose to the Marauders and the Skulkers, but they should beat these other units very handily, including the Crypt Ghouls. But they're just not getting the job done. And really, I want to further demonstrate, okay, if we don't like that methodology, let's take a look at the absolute optimum scenario for our Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. And that is fighting infantry, or fighting units that have a lot of armor, so their armor piercing matters, that also do not have armor piercing themselves, so that the armor that the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons have will matter. So that's sort of the units that I'm looking at. So far, we've looked at the Depth Guard, and against the Depth Guard, they came in 4th out of the 6. I don't know how much. What did they finish? Minus 75 gold. They came in 3rd out of the units, even though they should have finished 1st. Knights of the Blazing Sun, they should have done pretty good against them. Knights of the Blazing Sun, relatively speaking, they finished 4th out of 6. And we are going to continue looking at the next test subject, and that is going to be a single entity, and that is going to be Sigvald the Magnificent. So Sigvald is, I think, a good test subject because, very specifically, Sigvald has good armor at 110. And he's not got the armor piercing, so he's really got a lot of weapon strength, but it is not an armor piercing. And we're going to test Sigvald just naked, no abilities, we're not going to put his regeneration, nothing, just basic as he is. And this is where the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons amongst this group should easily finish first in terms of the value they generate. So, and remember, it doesn't matter if they win or lose in any individual battle, it's the gold calculation in the end that really matters. So expect them all to lose against Sigvald. Sigvald's pretty good, and he's a melee expert. He is a duelist, but he can chew through. Like, he's really hard to kill. He's got great stats: 70 melee attack, 60 melee defense. So I think he's a good subject for this test. So even if all the units lose, which is my goal, to give a unit that they can all lose to, I'm looking at the gold differential and the actual value they generate in that fight. And in this battle, the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons should be head and shoulders above the other units in this fight. So we'll just get testing and start getting ourselves some data. And again, for anyone who hasn't seen my testing, I use Pick Any General as a mod and unit testing fields, which is it's called UT fields. Great mods for doing this sort of testing. And again, I'd like to try and make my testing pretty repeatable. So basically, I'll line them up, and usually I have units versus units, but in this case I have a single entity, and I'll look at right about when they start doing damage to each other. So 5949. Then I'm going to take that number, 5949. So that's when they engage. I'm just going to copy that down now that I know where that's going to be. So they engage at 59 minutes, 49 seconds. And then I'll let the fight go, and I'll stop it again when they disengage. So we'll just put it in fast forward and watch the fight. And Sigvald is winning. Sigvald is great in melee. Obviously, he doesn't have any mount, any magic. That's sort of his thing. What do you have? 15% missile resistance, silver shield, encourage, immune psychology, Strider, so he can get through stuff. But you can see there, he thinks he's winning, and obviously the Dwarf Warriors think they're losing, so he's kicking the crap out of them, but it's okay. He's worth 1,100. Dwarf Warriors are worth 500. Okay, I can see that that might be a bit of a struggle to make up that gold difference, but the Dwarf Warriors should do fairly decently because of the distribution of their stats, the fact that they're armor piercing, have lots of armor, and Sigvald has lots of armor but isn't armor piercing, so it's a perfect target for Dwarf Warriors. So the battle ended at 57:08, so I'll go over and take that time in 57:08, and of course that gives me the battle time 161 seconds. Now I know Sigvald's starting hit points and the Dwarf Warriors starting hit points, so I'll get their end hit points. Sigvald has 2,500. And the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons have 1161 when they rout. 1161. So now, by looking at their starting hit points and finishing hit points, I can calculate a DPS, or damage per second, per each unit. And Sigvald did 29.1 DPS. The Dwarf Warriors with great weapons did 8.8 to him. But and even though the Dwarf Warriors lost, the gold differential was essentially a wash, 3 gold. So that's saying that, I'm not winning any gold or losing any gold by sending Dwarf Warriors up against Sigvald the Magnificent. So they lost. He finished with 64% of his health, but they didn't lose gold in that fight. So, this is the type of unit the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons should do good against, really. So we're in that battle, and we'll rematch. And then I test this. I do run each test 7 times. I mean, depending on the test, sometimes I run it 5 times. If I want to be really accurate, I'll run the test 20 times. But this one I'm running 7. It's a pretty decent number. It can, if units are really, really close, it can be a little bit swingy as far as the results that you get. And you do sort of need those 20 tests to get it reasonably accurate. I'm not going to say super accurate. Super accurate, it's kind of like probably 100 tests. But 20 tests gives you pretty good. And I have some testing on the channel where I've done 20 tests, and that's really when I'm looking at the value of chevrons, or a few tests that I've wanted to get a little more accurate and be a little more sure. The reason I don't do that all the time is obviously just the amount of time it takes to complete the tests. I want to get something that's going to give me an idea, a pretty good idea of how this fight's going to end, and without taking a mass amount of time. 5 tests, I've done a lot with 5 tests, and it's okay. 7 tests is just a little bit cleaner, and I feel pretty comfortable with that number for most tests. So far, it's been pretty reasonable and pretty repeatable. Although I can look at tests over time, and I'll do 7 tests at one time, 7 tests at another, and they'll be slightly different, but it's not massively. 20 tests to get really accurate. I've never done it in 100 tests. Maybe someday I will if I'm really interested in getting a very precise number. But I doubt it. So what time we got? 56:32. 6:32. So that took 197 seconds. Sigvald finished with 22:29. 2229, good for the dwarfs. Dwarfs finished with 976. And the dwarfs took 57 gold off of Sigvald. Nicely done. So we'll keep that fight going. And just keep going until we get all 7 of the tests done. And, I've been kind of paying attention to the new DLC that's on the way, which actually looks really good. It looks like kind of, I would say, I don't think by the cost of it, I think it's like $8. I already bought it. It's like 10% off. It's cheaper than some other DLCs, like Tomb Kings was a lot. What other one was a little bit more expensive? Vampire Coast. I think they were more like $15 or $20. I can't remember. But there is obviously a lot of reskins and a lot less work, though they do have a few units that look like they've really put some effort into them. The big thing is, it looks actually quite nice for Lizardmen. They got a few more tools in their toolkit, and the Empire, we'll see. There seems to be a lot of discussion as to the new units for the Empire, their wagons and their bows. I mean, I don't think their bows change much of anything, to be honest, but those wagons could, because they can shoot in 360, so they can kite a little bit better. And they do have some units with stock and snipe, or one unit with stock and snipe. And now they have a different lord, which should make them a little more interesting. So 5711. The weird thing is, well, not weird thing, I guess, I don't think any of their new units are going to help against the Dowie at all. It just doesn't look like the Empire is going to be any better off against the Dowie. They might, could be wrong. 2020. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. 1071. But from what I'm seeing, 124 gold they pulled. That's actually really good. So very nicely done there by the Dwarf Warriors. Great weapons. Pulled 124 gold on Sigvald. But they should do positive. They should actually do well in this fight. This is sort of their best matchup, if you will, or one of their better matchups, however you want to describe that. So I'll keep that going. It looks like the Croxagor, is it Nyx something? I can't remember his name. The Croxagor Lord might be extremely good against the Dowie. I don't know if he's going to top sort of Mazdamundi on Zlak or just a cheapo Lord on foot. But we'll see. We're going to see him in that matchup for sure. So it'll be fun. I don't have any changes planned for my build. I think the build actually, ironically, the last build I put together for the Lizardmen, where I took out the miners with blasting charges, because I think the red crested skinks are going to be they're just not that good in the matchup. You don't need the blasting charges to deal with them in general. So I think that will actually be prepared a little bit better for these new builds that the Lizardmen are going to bring with this Croxagor Legendary Lord. And they have a few other units that we might see. But, you know, I've been saying ever since the first DLC, which is weird they're getting 2 DLCs in a row, but I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it? But I've been saying since the first DLC, Red Crystal Skinks haven't been that good. Saurus Warriors with shields are still the gold standard, but you're just not seeing Saurus Warriors with shields. 5628. So it might come back to that though. We'll see. It'll be interesting. 5628. And Sigvald finished with 1775. Very nice. 1775. These are pulling some nice gold off of them. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. 964. 184 gold there. Okay. And that battle and rematch. Yeah, the things that I'm hearing, and you never know, the forums are sort of like, I mean, I've said many times, they're sort of like Mad Max, you know, Beyond the Thunderdome, you know, it's just, it could be pretty brutal, but there's always good information to be had there, you know, despite the vitriol that you can find. A lot of people are talking about the units that the Empire are getting, especially their anti-large missiles, will really help. Which the faction? They're really going to help versus Norska, I think, and their skirmishing wagon is going to help against Chaos. And we'll see how everything does against vampire counts. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, I'll watch. I mean, I don't really care how their other matchups go, to be honest. I really just wanted to see how they're going to match up against the Dowie. It'd be nice to see them have better prospects in the matchup, but 56-47. They just don't right now. 56-47. Better prospects in the matchup against the Dowie, being a little more competitive. 56-47. And Sigvald has 20-25. Pretty consistent. Doing like Sigvald only took positive gold away from the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons in one of the 5 fights so far. So pretty good results so far. But it'll be interesting to see where that lands up. I can't wait for the patch notes. I think I want to finish this test, and I'm going to have a look at the dwarf units. I hope that get some attention, and you know, I might make a video about it. Probably I should, just going through the changes I think are going to the changes I think are going to happen, the changes I hope don't happen, and the changes that would happen, sort of, if I could wish it to be true. This is how it would be, and put a video together like that, and then compare that to after the DLC is complete or is done. We'll see where that sort of lands up. Yeah. Oh, Sigwell's doing a little better. Nope, maybe not. Yeah. Okay. 5703. Sigvald, 2199. Very nice cinematic. Oh crap! Hate it when I do that. Missed a data point. I'm gonna do 1096. 96. Okay, so we'll go there. Delete. All right. And we'll go back and do that fight again. Just yapping away. The Lizardmen should be fun too, because it's going to be the largest unit in the game. Is their new, I don't know what, I can't remember what it's called. Their new big dinosaur. So the dinos, which have some pretty big units already, have gotten even bigger. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. You know, if it has problems, you know, unforeseen problems, and it could be that they're wanting to get that in there and make it a little extra big, because game 3 is going to have some really big units. They want to just see how it's going to kind of travel around the maps, and, you know, in multiplayer, what's it going to do, and single player, is it going to get through all the doors and get to all the places it needs to go without clipping and doing weird things. So maybe that could be just as a precursor to even bigger or just as big units in game 3, because there could be some very large units in game 3. So we'll see. The other thing the Lizards got, I mean, they got Blessed Croxagores, I think they're called, but oh hey Kanger, how's it going? They got Blessed Croxagores, but I don't think we're going to see them in the Dwarf matchup because they do magic damage, so I doubt they're going to see them. They look super cool, though. They looked amazing in the trailer. 5550. 50. Sigvald, 2052. And Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons, 1122, 1122. All right, 119 gold. Well, one more test, and then we'll move on to the Spears. Spears will probably get pretty trashed by Sigvald because they don't have any armor piercing. He has pretty good armor, so this is where we see the separation of those non-armor piercing units that really separate. We should see it anyways. So, but yeah, the Blessed Croxagores, they have a different run animation. They run like sort of like Gorbeasts from the Gorbeast Chariot. Maybe like they have that really low loping style. Instead of that Croxagore walk. So they have a different run animation, which should be good. Should be interesting, and we'll see. Because with magic damage, it's going to find a few matchups for sure. Like with a big unit like that does heavy magic damage, gonna find some places to put it. And I don't know if they were anti-infantry specifically, so that might be good because they'll be a better all-arounder. But we'll see how that plays out. 56, 58. 56, 58, and Sigvald finished with 2300. And Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons finished with 1098. Okay, so we've got here, on average, the Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons took 86 gold off of Sigvald. So, I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's reasonable. So that's what you would hope. They would actually finish positive against Sigvald. So now we can go get our Spearman. Kanger, you think we'll get another Dowie DLC before Game 3? I heard speculation on Skaven versus Dowie release featuring the ME Legendary Lords. Do I think so? If I had to bet, I would say no. So I think I was all in sort of on the Grom the Paunch versus some high elf for this DLC, and seeing that they're going with that. Well, maybe they could. I guess they could. I mean, nothing's out of the question. But I think the next one's going to be the Greenskins because they're the last ones not to get their rework, and then they might possibly with the pre-order DLC, they might do a free LC upgrading the Wood Elves and the Beastmen. Because I think that's how they're going to hype the game. So they're gonna do the Greenskins next, and the High Elves probably will do them together. So Skaven and Dark Elves will be left out a little bit. Oh, Master Engineer. Oh man, I wish I saw that Master Engineer with in the download Kanger or in the picture, and I thought, oh man, I kind of had a little bit of hope, but I don't know. I'll kind of go over my thoughts on the Master Engineer because I mean I know you and I've talked about Master Engineer before. I mean they just have not been able to get the Master Engineer in multiplayer where he needs to be. In campaign, Master Engineer is solid. Really good because of the buffs and the army buffs, and can just be outstanding. But in multiplayer is very niche, and I don't think he's competitive in any battle, but he can be okay in some. So. In some situations, very, very specific situations. Okay, CP. Okay, let's get our Heil Spearman. Okay, but I would love to see the Empire get their version of the Master Engineer, and I'd like to see Engineers upgraded, and then get an Engineer Lord. And that would be, I think there's a couple potential Master Engineering Legendary Lords. I would actually prefer a legendary hero. I think. I don't know how many actual Lords level characters there will be for Master Engineers. But I mean, the legendary Lord for ranged that I'd like to see is Joseph Bugman. And but I don't know that we'll get much. Like looking at the cost of the DLC is saying that there's not a ton of content in it. It looks okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So I'm guessing they have not put a ton of work into that DLC. They probably got their pipeline full, and they figured out everything they're going to do to Game 3. They're working on Game 3 at this point in some way, shape, or form. Because a game like that's going to take a while to get everything going, right? It's not going to just happen. And they got other games going, like Three Kingdoms, which is doing very well for them in China. Doing very well ever. Everyone I've talked to who's played Three Kingdoms has actually quite enjoyed the campaign. And hopefully we get the Three Kingdoms. I got my fingers crossed. I think Three Kingdoms could be a blessing for Total War Warhammer 3 in terms of how the diplomacy works. And it looks like a lot of the things I said in my diplomacy video, or some of the things I said in my diplomacy video, are actually in Three Kingdoms in terms of, making diplomacy clearer, very clear to the player, so you know what's going on at all times. So 56, 58. I'm going to say 49, but I'll check it. So 56, 58. See, this fight's sort of taking about the same time as the Dwarfs here, but Sigvald has a lot more health. 3173. And Spearmen finish with probably around 1,000, 1197. Yep. Okay. And Spearmen lose 186 gold. Like that's really what I would expect to see. That Sigvald is going to mop up the High Elf Spears. They should do the worst in this fight. By a margin. And they did the worst against the Depth Guard, I think, too. Did they do the worst against the Depth Guard? Yes, they did the worst against the Depth Guard by a pretty good margin as well. So I would expect them to do worst here by a bit of a margin as well. So we'll go and rerun that test. I got to remember to stop the match when they actually engage. So, I don't think the Dowie are going to get any units before Game 3. I'm just hoping they get some tweaks here and there. We'll see. I probably should make a full video going over what I think is going to happen in this for the DLC for the Dowie, what I hope doesn't happen, and what I wish would happen. Put those sort of 3 columns and go over them for each unit and discuss them. And it's funny is that the thing is, it wouldn't making content for the Dowie is actually pretty easy. Your legendary lord, master engineer, is the same as your regular engineer, just a bit different skin and a few little upgrades. You could make easily a hero level slayer, a hero level ranger. Who knows? There's lots of things you can do to add significant things to the Dowie leadership roster, which would be very, very helpful. And I love the idea of making 4 different things, and all the animations are there already. So it wouldn't be very difficult to do. 5626. Oops! Forgot to do it again. 5626 and Sigvald 3021. Spearman 1198. 143 gold they lost in that fight. Rematch. Yeah, I'm not sure what the pipeline looks like for the internal CA team to balance or change things, or how they sort of what their total thought process is. I know that they do get feedback on their own forums and on Reddit. Reddit's has a lot more posters. I think they use it a little bit more for news. I don't know. They seem to post there a lot though. But it'd be nice to understand what their process is. And I don't, to be perfectly honest, they have data. If they're not going to pay a ton of attention to the data in terms of the balance, I don't know why you wouldn't release that on a regular basis. They periodically release some of it, and they have done so on streams, and everyone loves it when they do. I don't know why they just don't keep a running tally of all their data and let all the nerds and geeks and people who love doing testing sift through it and analyze it and discuss it and debate. And it'll cause more rage on the forums, but excuse me, it is what it is. You're gonna see it no matter what, right? 5637. I forgot again. 5637. 5637. Sigvald 3262. Okay, and Spearman 1197. 1197 again. Very, very consistent there. Okay. Gotta stop the battle when they engage. Stop the battle when they engage. Just gotta remember to stop the battle when they engage. All right. Here we go. Stop the battle when they engage, and boom. All right. Well, I'm gonna call that 50 seconds actually. 50. All right, and we'll just keep that going. But anyways, that would be nice for them to share data and to sort of at least maybe share some of their thought processes or their parameters for how they think about balance in terms of let people discuss and be a little bit more interactive. Why the balance team couldn't be on the forums, I don't know. And or they could, like the thing that I've really liked what they've done lately is they have the Ever Chosen tournament. I don't know if they're going to have one here, but they have the tournament, and then they actually, after they see it, they make changes because they got this early access. But I don't know if there's going to be a tournament this time because it's releasing September 11th. I haven't heard anything. There's not a whole lot of time. The Ever Chosen tournament would have to be literally this weekend, and I haven't heard nothing. Or next weekend at the very latest. What is it? Next weekend is, they're releasing September 11th, which is sort of an odd date to release, but it is what it is. Yeah, they would have to run the Ever Chosen tournament next weekend at the very latest, which is the 7th and 8th of September, and then they'd have 2 days to make any sort of changes and upload. So I don't know they're running any kind of tournament. That tournament, I think, has been incredibly useful for balance in the early side of it. I mean, maybe it hasn't been perfect, but I think it's been good, and I don't know how much communication the balance team or people or person has with the sort of elite level players. 5635. Sigvald, 3102. There's so many things I'd love to see CA do in the multiplayer side. They just haven't buckled down and gone for it for whatever reason. And I know there's 100% chance there's staff inside of CA that are like so sad that there hasn't been more of a push for the multiplayer community. I know they know their numbers. I get their numbers too. I do multiplayer stuff and I do multiplayer videos. I might get a multiplayer video with 300 views, a good one. My campaign advice has 10,000 plus views. Like my campaign with, I have campaigns that the first one has thousands and thousands, like 20 or 30, 40 times as many views as I'll get on a multiplayer bit of content. And then my testing is even less because it's what I like to do. Not that it matters, but it's interesting to see the difference when I look at where the views are, because YouTube gives you all that stuff, which is really interesting. So I know CA looks at that and why would we spend a whole lot of time for something that is 1/20th, like has 1/20th the value? The problem is this multiplayer could have more value than campaign. I know they don't see it, and anyone would be crazy to see it, but I mean, the really, really massive games you think out there, very few are single player. Most are multiplayer. Now, the single player ones I can think of are like Minecraft, but multiplayer, League of Legends, Dota, Fortnite, like these types of games are big games, and they're all multiplayer, like that competitive. Now, I get it. When you look at, did I get my data? 5635, 3102. When you look at what this game is actually doing, it doesn't look like much, but the potential is all there. They just got to do it right, and they got to focus on it. Now, as a company, they are a single player. What they do is single player content, and very much so. And which doesn't even, you don't even have to be online for anything at all. I think maybe you do now, but you never used to. So really, they're in that single player mindset, and they've tried to kind of ramp up the multiplayer game, I think, with the Ever Chosen and things like that, and probably never got through all the results they imagined they could, and just, how good is this going to be? Which I understand when you're inside. It's that idea is that when you're inside of something, you can't see what it is. And they're inside of their game, and they do all kinds of games, so they can't see what the multiplayer, the potential really is in a meaningful way. But this game, when you see people casting this game, and some of the casts they've had where they do close-ups and they have good discussions. I mean, they are so awesome. And it's not hard. Like, this game is not hard to get people interested in, for sure, as a viewer, because you don't even have to play to really find the games fascinating if they have a great casters, and they put lots of close-ups and they show the units, which are beautiful. 3392. They just they can't see it. They just can't seem to get off the ground on that side. But who knows? Maybe CA and Games Workshop are looking, at making a just a multiplayer version of Total War Warhammer, which they could be, because they tried that. And what I'm thinking is, CA tried to partner with the company that does World of Tanks to make a game, and because they wanted to say, hey, let's get into multiplayer. And it's not like they're not trying some things, but I mean, it just didn't quite work out, because World of Tanks sees things as 15 on 15 battles from World of Tanks, or 10 on 10, or 5 on 5, or whatever. And maybe that's could be somewhat fun, but it's not going to be like World of Tanks. It just can't be. It's not suited to that sort of play. Now, these combined arms games that I've been seeing with Milk and Cookies Total War are fantastic, and that could be an entertaining side to the competitions. I think you could do something really, really fun there, and but you're just not seeing it, right? Are they gonna go? There they go. 56, 55. There's just so much potential to the multiplayer side of this game. Like, I mean, just massive. It is galactic. Because campaign, even though that's their primary product, Total War campaign is a niche product. Multiplayer is a worldwide phenomenon. Multiplayer, Madden games, basketball, FIFA soccer, multiplayer, competitive, Dota, all these games these are the games that really, they're free games that make so much money. It is obscene. Like, it is obscene how much money they make on games they give away for free. So their actual market, there's just so much of the market they're just leaving, because multiplayer could be a gateway to their single player if they really focused on it, but they don't. 56, 55. 56, 55. All right. 32, 84. Spearman, 1135. Holy, like, super consistent for the Spearmen where they break, hey? Really, really consistent. All right. In that battle. But there have to be a few things done to make the multiplayer blow up. For number one is you got to have a free way to enter the game. And, this, honestly, I don't know precisely how you do it, but I think you could just give one faction away. No regiments of renown, no campaign. They're just a multiplayer faction, and you do that with Empire. And you make, anyone can play Empire for free in multiplayer anytime they want, or something like that. And you let people potentially play multiplayer for free and actually get all the factions if they want in multiplayer. Make it like a progression sort of thing where you can earn factions and regiments of renown and all kinds of things. Like, they're just, I went over this in a very a more structured sort of way. But that would be the way to introduce people to the game, because you don't need as sort of as hefty a machine to run a multiplayer scenario as you do the campaign. Like, campaigns, you can have four armies, 6 armies fighting each other, but 4 armies on the field, each side with 40 units, and massive. But you're pretty limited in multiplayer. And if they put a little work into optimizing the maps, they could make some potatoes run this game pretty decently. In multiplayer, give it away for free for just the Empire, and bang, you instantly probably, I don't know, double, quadruple, quintuple, like within a month, you get a massive influx of players. Now, I get it, everyone would be playing Empire. Maybe that wouldn't be the funnest thing in the world, but and there'd be a lot of Empire versus Empire. But you got to start somewhere, and that would be the place to start. And, wouldn't take long for people to try the multiplayer, get interested in the game, and, maybe they just buy it. Or that's their gateway into campaign. Campaign would not be the gateway to multiplayer. Multiplayer would be the gateway to campaign, and that's where the real money is. Where players would, there's like right now for Total War Warhammer, what's $300 worth of content out there. You give Empire for free with no regiments of renown, only able to play multiplayer. Someone gets into it, and that's a gateway to $300 in revenue that they didn't have before. I don't know. I'm not sure. I would say that they've never even really discussed it in those terms, or else it would be pretty obvious. 34.45, and they'd really have a good look at it, because they have looked at partnering with other multiplayer groups. But the thing is, this is CA is partnering with Games Workshop. If they don't take advantage of this, somebody else is gonna. This has been a pretty good product for Games Workshop, Total War Warhammer, and if Games Workshop can see it, because Games Workshop is just a multiplayer game, right? So Games Workshop can see the revenue, and that is their model. 207 gold they lost there, quite a bit. So let's go and grab the Marauders Great Weapons. Sort of that is their business model. Games Workshop will just go and they'll partner up with World of Tanks, or they'll develop their own game that's just a multiplayer version which only has the units and doesn't have the campaign, and then CA will be just cut out of millions and millions of dollars. And I don't mean revenue, I mean profit for a very long time, and a gateway to all of their other games. In battle. Okay, did I say 5606? Oh, that is. Okay, so now I need to get Marauders with Great Weapons. So it's not just that it's something that I would like to see because it'll be fun. I think it's eventually coming. Because why wouldn't they port their tabletop game directly? They're seeing how successful this is in campaign. They got to see how much meat's left on the bone for multiplayer, and developing a multiplayer game like this where you have no AI. You have like in a multiplayer game, you have no AI, you have no nothing. You just have armies, and you set them up in their point system rather than the gold system. So they're exactly the same as they show up here, and bang, you can get anybody to develop that for you, and then CA will be just cut out of a massive amount of potential, and the next contract with Games Workshop, CA might even say you're not allowed to do any multiplayer, it's only campaign, and CA will have to say, okay, I guess we'll take the deal, and it'll be less lucrative. So it's potentially a big, huge loss in future revenue, and not only the game but the port and gateway to their other games. Because even in the launcher, what do we got here? Even in the launcher, they can advertise their other games and sales and everything else, right? So they have a really, really strong marketing tool in their launcher to look at their other games, and if they could build this gateway into their multiplayer scene, they could sort of cement that relationship with Games Workshop in the long term on the multiplayer side. They've already cemented it on the let's see, 5951. They've already cemented it for this sort of campaign stuff. We're going to be seeing Total War Warhammer for forever now. This is an IP that is going to be very good until something comes and replaces it, which I don't see happening. I don't see Games Workshop being replaced as an IP for a long time. Never say never, but it's been around for a long time, since the 80s, I think. I'm not sure when it got started. 59, 51. Okay. This could be 50 more years of total our CA and Games Workshop working together on this specific game with the multiplayer, because eventually the multiplayer for 40K and Age of Sigmar and sort of all this stuff is coming. Games Workshops, I know they like their models, and they're a high profit sort of thing in their books and everything else like that. But that's going to get more and more niche over time. There just happens to be, I think, a market for. There's less and less of a market, I guarantee, for younger players into the Games Workshop tabletop games. But right now it happens that the market's okay because you got a lot of people who are a little older, and when you're a little older, you generally have a lot more money and a lot more cash to spend. So their market's pretty good, but it really is literally going to die out in the next 20 years. So, they're going to come digital with all their products. 5723, which is good. Yeah, right. I mean, I could never play tabletop and just don't have the time and the space and everything else like that. Even though I would enjoy it, I know that. But 5723. Okay. Chaos Marauders. So, holy. So 2476. Chaos Marauders 1405. So the Chaos Marauders took a little gold off of Sigvald. I wouldn't have expected them to do that well because they have no armor, so Sigvald should kick the crap out of them. Okay, rematch. Yeah, so if they're having this release September, and it's pretty light, to be fair, it's pretty light. Do they do another release right away in December to hit Christmas? Maybe. I mean, they released Tomb Kings in January, and that was shortly after they released Game 2, which I think they had released in, I want to say, September. So it wasn't that long for a big DLC. So I could see them kind of hitting DLCs bang, 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 where they go the next DLC sort of late December, mid-December, hitting Christmas. And then the next thing is, and then they've got Greenskins, and then the next thing they do is sort of a March, April release of the Game 3 pre-order with a free LC for Beastmen and the Wood Elves. And who knows what the free order faction could be. They added some map space in Albion. Could be that. I think it's Kislev, but it could be Albion. Whatever it is, there's going to be a pre-order, and that could come out in April, and then the game sort of comes out in June, July. Or May. Like maybe it comes out in March and the game comes out in May. Who knows? 5706. Depends on their other games, and I've seen people projecting that Game 3 is not coming out till 2021. I'm like, there's no way. They're not going to wait till 2021. I think their license only goes into 2020 somewhere, like their main license for the 3 games. So I can't remember. I saw someone talking about it. Sigvald 1773. Modern Great Weapons 1014. Marauders took a good chunk out of them, 174 gold that time. But I mean, I don't think there's going to be any issues re-upping a license for more games. Whether it's I don't know where it's going to be, but I mean, for absolutely sure, now they're probably going to do Cathay as a standalone game. Ind, Nippon all get their own standalone games, or they might actually do a 1, 2, 3, just like they did of that side of the map. They're gonna do a mini game, sort of like Thrones of Britannia for the War of Vengeance. They're just this franchise and partnership is going to go on for a long time. What won't go on forever is the multiplayer bit of it, unless CA really takes the bull by the horns and develops the multiplayer side of it, which they certainly could. 5746. $57.46. Yeah, you make a game free. You start introducing players, especially young players, to the Warhammer world, and some of that's going to translate into cash. Now, free games translate into cash, on a longer term, but you start introducing 12, 13, 14-year-olds to Warhammer, and eventually they're going to be 35-year-olds with money to spend on your product. Now, it's a long-term view, but that's what does happen. You want to look at a game that's capitalized on that, not the free side, but the fact that yesteryear's punks, video game playing punks, are now this current year's whales is Star Citizen. They've raised like near $300 million now for a game that can't even play. Because all the people they're marketing to are people that used to be geeky video game players, and now they're sort of between 35 and 55, and this is their dream, and they have thousands of dollars, and some of them have spent up to $30,000 on the game. No problem. Why not? It's their passion, and good for them. 5746, 2408 for Sigvald. 2408. And we've got 1326 for Chaos Marauders. 1326. All right. Sigvald has not pulled positive value from the Chaos Marauders with great weapons yet, but they don't look like they're doing as good as the Dwarf Warriors, which is good. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, should finish first here by a good margin in terms of the value generated. This might be the best possible target for them. I don't know. Compared to the other units that they're actually fighting. We'll see. But yeah. I guess it also depends on the other projects. I don't know if CA has really staffed up to increase the additional workload from this game. It's hard to say. Different companies have different ideas when it comes to financials and how they manage them. Some companies are pretty conservative, which I think CA has to be relatively conservative because they've been making niche games for 25 years. So 5712 and doing well, like they're still around. 5712, and they haven't gone the way of BioWare or other developers that I love, where they've just sort of gone supernova and sold out and now are collapsing, right? Which has happened to so many good companies when they sort of get in the wrong way. CA seems to be very, very steady, pretty conservative, making great games, beautiful games, and they sort of have their niche, which is probably their detriment, which they don't see this massive opportunity this game on the multiplayer side really is. Like, it's just gargantuan. They just can't see it. They want to try and make their current multiplayer model where players have to buy the whole game to play 4 factions, and they have to somehow be interested in campaign, which lots of people aren't, to bring people in. You make a little free version of this where you can just download it and you get just Empire, and you can play against the AI for sure. You can test against the AI, not just against Empire, but against other factions. When you're in testing mode, you can do that, and then you can play online and get a rating and everything else like that. You've just introduced this game to a massive amount of people because it's free, and you can make the client really light. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. I hope to see it. I know eventually, now, sorry, think about this more and more. Eventually, we're going to get a standalone digital multiplayer game for Warhammer Fantasy. For sure, it's happening. At some point. Could be maybe they've already asked Games Workshop, and Games Workshop is in development of a multiplayer game right now. Could be, or they have a developer working on it. 5729. That could absolutely be possible. And that's why they're going to put some amount into what their multiplayer can be, but they're not too enthused about really focusing on it. Not that the balance is bad or anything in this game. Balance is pretty good, I think, for a game with so many units that are asymmetrically designed, that all have their factions have a unique feel. Everyone plays and looks different. The fact that it's even close to balance is almost a miracle. But that will never stop me from saying we can't be better on that side. So okay, here we go. We got 5729, yeah. And there's not more potential, because there's tons of potential. Yeah, and who knows? Like there's lots of games that sort of you control armies kind of like this, but none of them were there's as big in scope as Total War Warhammer. But you take the AI out of this, and just how you can have a lot more basic control and management of your units. I mean, you still have to have your units figure out what they're going to do. You could completely take off skirmish mode and everything else like that, for sure. I mean, you have AI. The only thing the AI would control is, there's no such thing as fire at will. The only thing the AI controls is when a unit routes, it just runs away to the nearest exit. That sort of thing. You make a pretty light front end. 5719, that's for sure. 5719. 5719, and we got 2486. 2486. All right. Marauders Great Weapons 1482. But I'd love to see it in any case. If CA does it, like that would be my favorite, because I really like their games are beautiful, and I like their artwork has been true to Games Workshop artwork. Because CA has great artists as it is. It has some really, really talented people in that studio on the art side. I mean, they have a lot of talented people, period. But in terms of artwork, I think CA art is second to none. They have some pretty good people over there. And so that's the same with the Games Workshop. Although some of the models look pretty goofy, the older models and stuff like that, they have a vision in terms of how their games look. And their artwork is extremely good as well. And CA has been very true to the Games Workshop vision of the art, and they've had the artists to execute that and to bring it further with, some of the models, units, and everything else like that. They've just made them wonderful. I think I'm trying to think of the goofiest looking units. The goofiest looking units, I say the goofiest looking animations in the whole game I want to say one of the only goofy ones is the witch elves. The way they run, that looks a little odd to me. But there's not much else. Everything else, the animations are pretty spot on, pretty spectacular actually. 5728. And Sigvald. There we go, 2308. And the Marauders with Great Weapons, we'll say 1483. And there we go. We sort of get the result that we're expecting in some ways, in that the Dwarf Warriors did better than the Marauders of Great Weapons, but barely. Dwarf Warriors took 86 gold off Sigvald. The Marauders of Great Weapons took 68 gold off Sigvald. So a differential of what? 18 gold. Not a whole lot. It's not nothing. It's not a whole lot. It's probably in the margin of error we got. Oh yeah, easily. So, this could end up, I'd have to do a little more tests, but just showing that Marauders are great weapons. They took gold off of Sigvald. Now here's the Nasty Skulkers. Nasty Skulkers have been the unit that has really performed in all this testing. They have done extremely well in all of our testing. I mean, they are a top tier unit, a top shelf unit at 500 gold. Rematch. Whoops, no, I don't want a rematch. Damn it. Hate it when you do lots of testing, you end up doing goofy things just like that. But the Nasty Skulkers are a top shelf unit of 500 gold, just in their ability to fight. Whoops. See defeat. Just in their ability to fight other units, not even with their other great tools like stock and Vanguard Deploy mattering, and their smoke bomb matters a little bit in these fights. But did I just do that again? Really? Oh my god. Okay, end the battle there, Sioux Devil. Go get yourself some Nasty Skulkers. Okay. And Nasty Skulkers. And Sigvald. There we go. So Sigvald should actually kick the crap out of the Nasty Skulkers because they have no armor and they have very low leadership. So he should actually, but despite that, they've been doing better than I would expect. But he really should kick the snot out of them. And you can see he thinks he's losing, which is weird. He shouldn't be losing. There's no way he loses this. There's no way. There's no way Nasty Skulkers beat up Sigvald one-on-one. Their leadership just won't hold out, because really there's a reality, once they get below so much health, they're going to falter and Sigvald will not. There you go. I'm just going to play. Yeah, here it comes. They're going to rout now. And Sigvald will keep fighting. But this is pretty shocking, actually, though. Like, they're taking them to task. This is ridiculous. Like, how are they even fighting? They have 40 freaking leadership. There we go. And they're down to, what, 1,100? Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'll be right back. All right. This had something in my eye there. Probably a little salt from watching these freaking little goblins outperform my beloved dwarf warriors with great weapons against Sigvald, and badly. They almost beat him. All right, 56-44. I'm going to go, I don't know what that ended as. So 56-44. Right? 56-44. Sigvald had 408 hit points. Nasty Skulkers, 1196. And there we go. Nasty Skulkers took 581 gold off of Sigvald. That is very wrong. Alright, so we'll just keep, maybe this was an outlier. It's possible. So we'll just run this. That's why we do it 7 times. Could be a complete outlier, could be complete bad information. You know, sometimes these happen. When you test like this, you get really weird results. But the Nasty Skulkers have been surprising in every test. So, here we go. Okay, we're going to watch when he connects. And boom. 59.51. We'll call it 51. Okay, so we'll let that test go. So Sigvald thinks he's winning now, which is better, because he thought he was losing before, so he must be doing better. And here's a Nasty Skulker. Despite them not showing a green cost that they're winning, oh, they think they're winning very slightly. Now they're even. They still seem to recharge their special ability. They recharge their ability if they're not losing. So yeah, even though they're getting Sigvald low, they're gonna rout because there we go. Because just the nature of the way leadership works. So 57-13, but they still did they still got a ton of damage done on him. 57-13, 587 for Sigvald. And Nasty Skulkers, 1196. Took 531 gold off of Sigvald. That go like lots. And here's the thing: is like Skulkers. I had a discussion the other night when I was testing Skulkers, like because they're really, really good. I don't think they're OP. I just think Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are that bad compared to them. But in this case, Dwarf Warriors are really underperforming compared to the Skulkers. Skulkers 500 gold. Dwarf Warriors finished with an average of 86 gold. Like, the Nasty Skulkers should not be doing as good as the Dwarfs, let alone pulling 5 times as much gold against Dwarfs. So the Dwarf Warriors' great weapons are, just really, really underperforming. And this sort of exposes some of that performance. I think the Depth Guard was even worse, because the Depth Guard should really, really, really crush the Nasty Skulkers, because the Depth Guard caused fear. But that just wasn't the case. The Nasty Skulker finished first against the Depth Guard too. That's where the Dwarfs should really shine, because that fear won't matter as much. But nope. 56-37. 56-37. All right, so we've got Sigvald with 1091. A little bit better, but still really bad. And the Skulkers with 1404. Okay. In the battle. A rematch. And the thing is, I mean, I've seen, like, Skulkers are not an auto pick. So they're not. I mean, I think they should be an auto pick against the Dawi. And they'll be an auto pick in a couple matchups, but they're not an auto pick in every matchup. Most certainly not. And I've seen them. I mean, you can, like, the greenskins can absolutely be dominated. The big thing about greenskins is when they lose their leader. Because you take a unit that has 40 leadership to begin with, and you take, 10 off for their leader? I mean, that it just puts everything... They just cannot deal with that sort of leadership pressure as a faction. And you don't beat the Nasty Skulkers, you beat the greenskins. Oh my god. That's really, really close. So, Sigvald's at 30 leadership. I'm just going to slow that down a little bit. And watch. So Sigvald's going to rout here. Boom. Wow. So Nasty Skulkers won this. That's surprising. I didn't expect that. Well, we'll just put their victory over here. Sigvald finished with 321. Nasty Skulkers, they finished with 1248. And they pulled 610 gold out of that fight, which is utterly shocking to me. I mean, the Skulkers have been doing good, but I thought they would not be doing this good. That's super surprising. Like, where the Skulkers should do really good is against stuff like Dwarf Warriors, not with great weapons, like basic Dwarf Warriors. And they do. Like, nasty Skulkers are pretty nasty. And that smoke bomb of theirs really does help versus Cav and stuff like that. And then obviously they have the stock and the Vanguard deployment. Vanguard deployment, I don't know how much it's really worth. It's not worth nothing. But, you know, is it worth 10 gold? 20 gold? As an ability? Someday, you know, I might actually do a sort of a... I might actually attempt to put a value on abilities. To really put an actual value on, you know, how much is Encourage worth versus stock versus snipe versus whatever. And it could be done. It can be done. You know, I have a methodology to do, but it's not through testing. So you can't actually test that in a realistic way to compare them, but it can actually be done. 57. So I've done, I work with stats and trying to figure out the value of things at work all the time, you know, as an engineer. And these things there's a lot of things in the world that are hard to compare, you know, but there are ways to do it. So 963 that are pretty valid and give very good results. So 963 for Sigvald. We got 1249 for the Skulkers. 1249 for the Skulkers. And like here, you know what's just really surprising? I just noticed this. These units start 600 gold apart. You know, 1100 gold for Sigvald, 500 for the Nasty Skulkers. They start at 600 gold apart. Nasty Skulkers actually beat even that at 610 gold. I don't know if I've ever seen that, to be honest. Oh, I have. On this anti-large stuff. Vids was very close, but we saw that same effect. But that same effect was Knights of the Blazing Sun, a heavily armored, low armor piercing unit versus men-at-arms with pole arms, which have charge defense against large and a massive bonus versus large of 18, and they're armor piercing. So these Nasty Skulkers are performing. You know. Alright, we'll just keep on testing. Rematch. Got 26 melee attack. They hit their opportunist murderer. And they go up to what? 39. 26 got 13 melee attack. They only have 16 melee defense. So Sigvald is hitting him every time, essentially. Well, not every time. 90% of the time. So when he swings, all those units go flying. I mean, he's hitting 90% of the time. He's got 70 melee attack versus 16 melee defense. So that's 105 minus 16. 95. So he's hitting him at 89%-ish. Is that correct? I might be mistaken. I'm just doing that in my head, but if he's hitting him on average 89% of the time, and that's before you put in a charge bonus, and obviously before you start getting any fatigue effects or anything like that. You know, that's what a little bit closer, but he's still like lost a ton if he's at 2178. Let's see, 21. Whoops. Okay, 5720. 5720. Sigvald, 2178. And Nasty Skulkers, 1768. So Nasty Skulkers only took 130 gold off him that time. Wow. They are just kicking the crap out of him. Rematch. Like, even if we had Sigvald's regeneration on, I think the Skulkers would do all right. There we go. Okay. Like, it's surprising any of these guys get up. Like 3 of them are getting up. Like, how are they getting up? Because he's hitting them. You can see them go flying, but lots of them are just keep getting up. So I guess his splash damage is not enough to kill models. Like, I know he obviously has a lot of weapon strength, but it's still divided by the amount of units that he hits is somehow not enough to kill a full Skulker model. Because what's the health of a Skulker? Probably like 60? 520? I mean, he would have to hit 10 before... Well, I don't know. Maybe 8. I wonder how many he hits. Anyways, 57-11. 57-11, and we get this last bit of data in here. 1236 for Sigvald. 36. Nasty Skulkers finished with 1612. Whew! Pulled 438 gold off of Sigvald. So far, the Dwarf Warriors of Great Weapons have pulled 86 gold off of Sigvald. The High Elf Spearmen have lost 200 gold to Sigvald. And the Marauders of Great Weapons pulled 68 gold off of Sigvald. The Nasty Skulkers pulled 438 gold off of them. Wow. Time to see the Crypt Ghouls. Crypt Ghouls and Men-at-Arms Polearms, last 2. So end that battle, and we're going to go get them. Alright. Crypt Ghouls. Almost picked up a Crypt Horror. I think they would do a little bit better. I wonder if a Crypt Horror could kill him. Probably. They have poison and regeneration, armor piercing. Yeah, they would kill him. For sure they would. But Crypt Ghoul has poison, no regeneration, and no armor piercing. So Sigvald should be able to win this battle pretty handily, actually. Alrighty. Yes, mortal fools. These are not mortal fools. I don't know what they are. They're not immortal either. Well, they're undead. No, I think these things are not undead. Crypt Ghouls are. I think they're just nasty, nasty living things, right? So 59, 50. Okay, alright, so we're going to watch the Crypt Ghouls, because once their health goes below, or sorry, their leadership goes below 0, and they start to crumble, we'll stop the test there. Just so we don't get crumbling DPS in there. And Sigvald is kicking the crap out of them, so we definitely don't want that extra damage in there. We want to really see his DPS against them. I mean, it don't have to be quite perfect on. Oh, they keep on fighting. And there we go. So 57, 29. 57, 29. Okay, 141. Sigvald finished with 3097, 3097. And Crypt Ghouls finished with 1584. Sigvald did quite well. Took 130 gold off the Crypt Ghouls there. Crypt Ghouls have been performing pretty good in all of our tests so far. Relatively good compared to in the where it was all fight all. Surprisingly good in actuality. But you know, that's I guess where they're going to excel a little bit more. Crypt Ghouls, that is, with that fear against generally low leadership opponents. It won't matter at all. Well, it won't effectively. It doesn't matter against Sigvald because he has a really good leadership.
Begin the reaping. Deliver slaughter.
Deliver slaughter. All right. You do you, Sigvald. Deliver away. Yeah, I wonder if Games Workshop is developing a digital tabletop game. Because what would be really interesting is to see inside. Whoops, minus 18. It's crumbling. What would be really interesting is to see inside of Games Workshop sales, and not the numbers they report publicly, but to see inside and to have a guess at how much revenue is being generated by Total War, by CA, not by Total War Warhammer, not that revenue, but by driving new customers into their other revenue streams. 57.47. 57.47, and we've got Sigvald with 31.98. Crypt Ghouls 16.19. 156 gold. Yep, to be expected, I think. So the Crypt Ghouls are sort of performing generally how I think they should. Maybe they outperformed a little bit in the all versus all test, but I think they're doing okay in general. The Men-at-Arms Polearms performed a little better than I expected in general. They are not terrible, I guess. That's the best thing you could say about them. But boy, if they get their hands on large, that armor piercing anti-large charge or bonus versus large of 18 is no joke. But I suppose really, don't they have to be concerned about leadership as well? I mean, their leadership is not wonderful, but it's not as bad as the Skulkers, I don't think. Script goal, so 58.29. 58.29. Got Sigvald. What are the? Was that -2? Yeah, Sigvald 34.85. Crypt Ghouls 24.13. 166 gold, kind of in that range. Rematch. Hey, Rourke Boss, how's it going? How are we doing? Why Sigvald? Okay, so I'm putting together a pantheon of units to test against the Dwarf Warriors' great weapons and their other 500 gold opponents. So Sigvald I have stripped down to 1100 gold. I'm specifically using Sigvald because he has 110 armor, but he doesn't have armor. He doesn't do armor piercing damage. Okay, so Sigvald should be the ideal Lord target for Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, because Dwarf Warriors with great weapons have armor piercing, plus they have a lot of armor. So his armor piercing, his lack of armor piercing will be make it harder for him to kill them. So Dwarf Warriors with great weapons should perform very good against Prince Sigvald the Magnificent, compared to Chaos Marauders with great weapons, Nasty Skulkers, Crypt Ghouls, High Elf Spearmen, and Men-at-Arms with Polearms. They should finish number one in that value train pretty easily. So Crypt Ghouls are there. So Workbus, I saw you were live streaming, but had to finish casting a few more. Hey, I love that you're casting so much, man. I love it. Because it's nice, right? Because you can actually just cast 5 or 6 in a row and then you're done, right? So for a while I got into a rhythm where I was casting all my weekly stuff every Saturday, and it was just nice because then I wouldn't, like, every once in a while I'd get on and cast a couple of games and during the week as well if I had time, but it was nice because I could just get all my casting done in one morning or most of one afternoon or something like that. So I haven't been able to get back into a stable casting bit because, we've just got some other things I have to get done. But I've been able to live stream my testing, and I want to get this testing out of the way so I can keep presenting my results on the forums. And maybe there's an outside shot we see Dwarf Warriors with great weapons sort of get the attention I think they deserve. So Sigvald 3354 and Crypt Ghouls 2329. 137 gold. We'll keep on testing. Concede defeat. Yes. Rematch. Rourke Boss, a new DLC. I know, I can't wait. I think that's going to be fun. I don't think that DLC helps Empire. Helps Empire versus the Dowie, but it's going to be interesting. I think it helps Empire versus some factions. Yeah, you have to push the pace. I know. This weekend I actually want to get some casting done because I want to get as many games casted as I can before the DLC hits and those replays are no good anymore. It really sucks, but as soon as the new DLC hits, all your old replays get all gacked up. They don't work properly anymore in general, which is really, So I mean, I'm like right where you are, where I know I got to go to work. Oh, the war wagons, you can't wait. I know, and you're like an Empire, like the Empire guy, Empire never give up. So those war wagons are going to they'll be fun to see. For sure. 5829. What do we got? Sigvald with 3388. And the Crypt Ghouls with 2561. Okay. See defeat. Rematch. Dr. Nick, a.k.a. Gobble Slayer, how are you? Just about to go to sleep. I want to see if there's been any interesting results on the lab test tonight. So, Gobble Slayer, there has been. I will, after I put this down, I will show you if you're back to bed. Rifles, mortars, and the volley gun. Those wagons, see, it'll be interesting to see how mobile artillery functions. That'll be our first grasp. Now, this mobile artillery might be a predecessor to the how the not trolls, ogres are going to be. Maybe some of the Dowies are. Who knows? They're maybe trying to test some stuff there. It should be interesting to see what mobile artillery is like. I mean, technically, the Lizardmen already have mobile artillery. But it's not. They don't have mobile artillery with like 70 speed or anything like that. They sort of have, they're not nearly as fast. Mind you, the salamanders are pretty good. We'll see. Rifle, but less models. Yeah, an artillery piece might just take them to a meme unit. Yep, to be like the Luminarch of Heish. Gobble Slayer. So many fun looking units in DLCs. I'm excited too. Rourke Boss Lizardmen going to get some good units though. You know what? I love DLC of all sorts. I mean, I own every DLC, but I don't play any other faction but the Dwarfs, just because I want to support CA, obviously. 5801. 5801. Sigvald finished with 3369. 3369. Okay. Crypt Ghouls finished with 1950. So really quick summary, Gobble Slayer. I'm looking, Sigvald really should be an ideal target for Dwarf Warriors with great weapons because he has lots of armor, but he doesn't have armor piercing himself. So the Dwarf Warriors armor should matter against Sigvald, and his armor, that he has armor, should also matter. So the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons should perform very well in this fight, and they should certainly beat out great weapon Marauders and Nasty Skulkers, and definitely crush High Elf Spears in terms of value, and beat out the Men-at-Arms Polearms and beat Crypt Ghouls by quite a bit. So what we've seen is the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons pulled 86 gold out of that equation. Okay, that's not awful. The High Elf Spearmen lost 207 gold. That makes sense. The Marauders with great weapons pulled 68 gold, so almost as good as the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. So that's showing how Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are underperforming there by quite a bit. The big surprise so far is that Nasty Skulkers took 438 gold on average against Sigvald, and they beat him in one fight. Now this is naked Sigvald without the regeneration, but the Nasty Skulkers actually beat Sigvald in one fight, and they beat him down. Like, he finished on average with 25% of his health. Against the Dowie, 55%. Against the Marauders of Great Weapons, 57%. Against the Nasty Skulkers, 25%. So that's been the story of this this night's testing is the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are not performing nearly as good as I would expect them against a single entity like Sigfold. And the Nasty Skulkers are outperforming what I thought, and they even beat him once, which was shocking, actually. I didn't expect that at all. Okay, so we'll get the next test going. See defeat. Yes, and rematch. Lizardmen got some good units. Our Gobbleslayer ROR Greatswords might be good against Dowie. There's ROR Greatswords? I didn't see that. Rook Boss, Ancient Salamander is super OP mobile artillery. So we'll see, because that's what we're getting, right? Mobile artillery. Ancient Salamanders. They were unbelievably OP when they released. Some people say they nerfed them too much. Some people say they're still strong. I honestly don't know, because they're not real scary versus the Dowie. Although some people do bring them. Ancient. Okay, yeah. So Gobbleslayer, yeah. Ancient Salad used to be really strong before the nerf. Yeah, some people say they're weak now, but they melt infantry. Absolutely true. Marauders, a great weapon, are better than Dwarf Warriors, a great weapon. It is a shame, because Marauders with great weapons are not wonderful units. I mean, they're not. They're underperforming units themselves. That's not shows you how much Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are underperforming if they're performing even worse than a unit that already underperforms in the Marauders with great weapons. 58-16. Okay, and Sigvald finished with 3348. And the Crypt Ghouls finished with 2391. There we go. So here's something interesting. So Sigvald took 145 gold off the Crypt Ghouls and only 207 gold off the Spearmen. So, well, maybe that's interesting. I don't know. The Crypt Ghouls actually did pretty poorly in this, but they should. But, I would have thought they would have outperformed the Spearmen by a little bit more. But, maybe that's reasonable. I don't know. So we'll get to the men-at-arms with pole arms. See how they do. Okay. Melton from Marauders just proved that 80 armor is not enough. Maybe. I think the problem is they kill too slowly. That their weapon strength and my melee attack is not enough, and the charge bonus, like everything, that all their offensive stats are not enough, is what I think. I don't think they need more defensive stats. I think they need more offensive stats, is my opinion. Right or wrong. So that's how I would like to see them go. If they were to get some attention, I'd like to see them get more offensive stats, meaning like sort of charge bonus, weapon strength, and a melee attack. The Longbeards with great weapons are a totally different animal, and same with miners, but they both also underperform pretty badly. Just underperform in different ways. There's very good reason. I think there could be just a simple error they made with the Longbeards, actually. Now that I'm looking at it, but because you look, just to show you guys, if you look at, so let's take a look at Dwarf Warriors. Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, Longbeards, and Longbeards with great weapons. Okay, so Dwarf Warriors with great weapons are 50 gold more than Longbeards. Okay, and they have 10 less melee defense, plus 2 weapon strength, plus 6 charge bonus. Longbeards with great weapons are 100 more than the basic Longbeards, and they have the same stats, plus 10 melee defense, or minus 10 melee defense, plus 2 weapon strength, plus 6 charge bonus. It's exactly the same. But to go from the Dwarf Warrior to the Dwarf Warrior with great weapons, you pay an extra 50 gold. To go from Longbeards to Longbeards with great weapons, you pay an extra 100 gold. For the same exact stat differential, there's no difference, with the exception of charge defense versus large on the Longbeards with great weapons versus the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, which is definitely not worth 50 gold. And so there, somewhere along the line, they might have changed the Longbeard price from 700 to 650, and then never changed the Longbeard with great weapons. Like, it really could be like that. That's been the way since the start of the game. So I think they might have both originally been meant to be 50 gold apart, and then the Longbeards were underperforming. They reduced them by 50 gold, and they never touched the Longbeards with great weapons. So that's absolutely possible. Longbeards with great weapons at 700 gold are much more appealing. So, still probably weak though. But they do other things with the encourage and everything else like that. So, anyways, let's go get those. Let's go get those Bretonnians. Men at arms, pole arms, and we'll get that fight going. Dwarf 40 casts incoming. Gobble Slayer. How do miners compared to Dwarf Warriors great weapons against Chariot or Cav? They're bad. They're I mean, they can get some damage into Chariots and Cav, but and that's the use for them. Miners can pull positive value against Chariots and Cav if the Cav and the Chariots don't move. If they sit there and fight, the miners can pull positive value. Now, I've been in a few games where people have let their Chariots sit there and fight, and their Cav sit there and fight, but not very many. So, but they can pull positive value. That's where a lot of my testing about a year ago, actually last summer, when I was looking for the best possible uses for miners, Dwarf Warriors great weapons and Longbeards with great weapons, where I found those uses are 1, anti-cav, 2, as a bodyguard for lords and heroes. Because if you put your lords and heroes inside of a group of miners, it really does help stop them from getting punted around so much, and they can absorb some damage. Longbeards with great weapons actually work as an excellent bodyguard for lords and heroes. 56, 57. Call that 50. 56, 57. Is that 56, 57 correct? Yes. Sigvald finished with 29.83. 83. And Men at Arms with pole arms finished with 14.52. Only 116 gold they pulled off them. Much better than the Spearmen, which you would expect, because they do have that armor piercing. So I got to stop the battle when they actually engage. Chaos come. Kill them all. Okay. So fast forward. When are they going to engage at? Boom. 59.49 we'll call it. So this is 49. Copy V. And fight. Someone showed where it listed them in campaign. No way. There's going to be some Empire players are going to be pretty happy about having a Greatsword ROR, because Greatsword Regiment of Renowned are going to be an auto pick in a few matchups, I think, if they have them. And they're sort of around that 1,200 gold cost and value. They're going to fit right up if they can sort of battle against, hammerers and black orcs and Harganeth executioners and all that kind of stuff. They're going to be a high value, I would think. They're called Karenberg Greatswords. Sweet. So unless they're campaign only, you can expect them in multiplayer. I hope they're in multiplayer. I'd love that for Empire, because they just have no top tier infantry at all. So unless Orc Boss, Longbeards great weapons, and Dwarf Warriors are great weapons, and miners are like cheaper anti-large. Yeah, that's what they're kind of like. Although when you look at miners at 325, they're kind of like a cheap anti-large, but you get Empire Spears at 300, which are actual cheap anti-large. And you get Skaven clan rats with spears. Now, in terms of how they can perform in an anti-large role, I've never really tested that, but they're okay there. Gobble Slayer, have a great night. You too, man. Go ahead, get a good sleep. Have good luck in the tournament tomorrow. Rook Boss, yeah. I'm super happy if Empire gets ROR Greatswords. Me too. They're going to be in lots of matchups. Like, what else? What other matchups are you going to see those in? You'll see them against the Dowie, for sure. But where else would you see them? ROR great swords that are. So let's assume the ROR great sword is going to be 1,200 gold, and it's going to have some good ability. Skaven Slave Spears. Like if you have an ROR greatsword at 1,200 gold with some other good ability, what matchups are you going to see him in? Do you think? 5649. Skaven Slave Spears, the most OP stuff in the universe. They are efficient, man. You do not diss Skaven Slaves. They are efficient units. 5649. Sigvald, 2846. Oops, 2846. Men at Arms pole arms, we got 1452. 77 gold. Men at Arms pole arms are doing not too bad. Javanzi whiskey. Good morning. Morning to you. Work boss. Good for the meme builds. Mm-hmm. Okay, and rematch. So we've got just the pole arms to finish testing, and then I'll be able to post that up on the forums. Javanzi whiskey. Dowie ain't gonna like the Dread Saurian. You know, I would be happy to fight against a Dread Saurian. I love fighting against the Lizardmen. That's my favorite battle to fight. It's so fun. And it's the most even battle for the Dowie. Javier, good morning to you, sir. How you doing, buddy? Work boss. I can't think of any matchups I would bring our... Really? No matchups you would bring our great swords? Not even against the Dowie? But if they have some cool abilities, maybe. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I could see that. Okay. Yeah, Javanzi, I can't wait for the Dread Saurian. I hope we see him against the Dowie. The Dowie have so many tools to beat up big lizards like that, but... You know, the only real big lizard I think you can bring to the Dowie Lizardman matchup is specifically Mazdamundi on Slack, because he can heal, and he has he has the missile resistance. But who's to know? Maybe this Dread Saurian has good missile resistance as well. Look at chat. Gobbleslayer, if you want some cheap AP units, I think you're better off using Ekron's Miners. Decent melee stats. The Frenzy has a lot of blasting. Yeah, Ekron's Miners can do some work. Work boss, like magic attacks or guardian trait or other stride. Yeah, I see. Then you'll consider them. Gotcha. Stride, yeah, guardian magic attacks or something like that. Who knows? They could do something real fun with them, too. They could give them 30% missile resistance. You know, so they kind of and sort of some crazy trait. Right? Because they are a regiment of renown. They got a lot of scope there. 5639. 639. Sigvald, 3032. And Men at Arms with pole arms, 1518. Okay. Javanzi, I still feel the Dowie needs... they do, Javanzi. I mean... There's disagreement on what kind of TLC they need, because there's different perspectives to look at it. I look at the perspective of TLC is I'm not as interested in straight up balance as I am as making units fun to play in and of themselves. Like, I want gyrocopters to be what I imagine gyrocopters to be, even if they're not very powerful. Meaning I see gyrocopters as flying tanks. And I feel them as unbreakable, really hard to bring down, sort of like a flying steam tank, you know. But they're very fragile. They keep buffing them, so now the basic gyrocopter is pretty decent, and the gyrocopter brimstone guns is pretty decent because they've kept buffing them, but they're still not what I imagined. I see the Dwarf Warriors are great weapons, Longbeards are great weapons, and the Miners as being the three units that need the most attention to the Dowie lineup, because those could single-handedly bring back the matchups where you see chariots all the time. You know, because if you could get a lot more damage with infantry rather than having to rely on Trollhammer torpedoes or stuff like that, and you can make it so you can use those as frontline units in those matchups more often without getting absolutely demolished by, say, for example, You know, if you could bring a front line of Longbeards without getting demolished in the High Elves versus White Lions or Swordmasters of Hoeth, you know, Longbeards with Grey Weapons can do a number on chariots because they have a lot of mass and they can put damage on them. But, I mean, not everyone sees it that way. Like, even Dwarf mains all see it a little different, you know. 5639, did I get that in there? 5639, 32, 15, 18. Yes. Okay, in the battle. And a rematch. Orc boss. I think the best big monsters you should bring is a Carnal Lord. Oh, yeah. Against dwarfs. Or if allowed, 3 ancient Stegodons are solid build for dwarfs. Oh, yeah. To do like to go all out on large, that could be hard to deal with. Like dealing with 1 or 2, like those, and I don't mean like, it is not hard to deal with the Bastiladon. They're only 600 gold, but they're actually pretty easy to deal with. You bring 1 or 2, they're not too difficult, but maybe if you brought 3 or 4, they could be a little more difficult. I know I have fought someone who brought an all big dino army, and I had no problem winning. And he brought like Mazdamundi. He brought the healing crystal, the revivification crystal. He brought a Carnosaur, no, the hero on the Carnosaur, not the feral Carnosaur. He brought all single entity models, not a single infantry or anything. And I crushed that build like badly with the dwarf, with my basic dwarf build. So I don't know. I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, I got beat pretty badly by Falcon, and he brought 10-1 on his mount. But Falcon's like a much better player than I am, so it's hard to say. He's just so good that I can't tell if it was build differential or all play skill. But I feel like it was just all play skill, because I've been able to do pretty good against most Legionmen players, even if they do bring heavy single entity model builds. The hard builds to deal with are the builds with the Saurus Warriors and the 3 Croxagors. That build is freaking tough to beat, and no red crested skinks, just regular skink cohorts. 5622, 5622, or 5652, 5652. Sigvald, 2677, 2677, and Men at Arms Pole Arms, we've got 1387. Okay, 35 gold. Like, the Men at Arms with Pole Arms are, to be fair, are doing okay here. Rematch. Dr. Nick, Gobble Slayer. I wish Dwarf throwing axes had better combat stats and more ammo. I really love using them, but they die so fast. So, I am going to do a video, Gobble Slayer, because I agree. They're the one unit. They're in a weird place. So I did testing on the basic throwing axe unit, the Ranger throwing axe unit, and they're just not quite there. So the Regiment of Renown, Ulthar's Raiders, are very solid, and they're a good unit, but they're not a must-pick unit for Dowie lineup. But they're excellent in a lot of matchups. And they're at 750. Now, the base unit with the throwing axes are at 650, yet the 750 unit has the stats as a rank 9 650 unit, which you rank them up to 9, they're like 850, 900 gold or something like that, which is crazy. And they got the same stats. So a statted up Ranger with great weapons at 750 gold is generally good. The ones at 650 gold can have a real hard time getting their value. They should actually be sort of 550, something like that, and then they would sort of get their value. 5613. So 56. Maybe I'll just show you real quick. We'll just pop over there because it's interesting. So 5613. Sigvald 2074. 1123. Men at Arms with Pole Arms are going to do good here. They pulled 112 gold off of Sigvald. Well, how about that? Here, I'm just going to go and show you. If I go here, let's go grab the dwarfs. And we grab here, Rangers Great Weapons, and then we've got here the Altar's Raiders. Now, the Altar's Raiders are 100 more gold, and they have obviously a Marked by Althar, which is a very powerful ability. But you look, if you take your Rangers of Great Weapons, take them all the way up, yeah, like 929 gold, they have the same stats. Although the Altar's Raiders have 3 extra missile damage and Marked by Althar for 200 less. So this Ranger with Great Weapon could be sort of, I mean, they're what, 100 and, we'll call it 180 gold more. So they could be 180 gold less. About, so you call them, they could be at not only 550, they could be at 450, and they still wouldn't quite be as good as Althar's Raiders when they were ranked up to rank 9, you know. So you could easily put these guys, Rangers of Great Weapons, down to sort of 550 pretty easily, and then they're gonna start to be pretty solid. But in some matchups, they're actually not awful. So they do have some niche, but the thing is, they just don't survive. But if you put them down to 550, I think they become a unit you see a lot more. They actually gotta make Skoldigard cheaper as well, but that's another thing. I have to do a whole video where I go through everything, because there's a few things. I got to do my wish list video. You know, my dwarf Christmas wish list in September. Where we go. Or what? Then the dwarfs would just be super OP. You just bring infantry and face roll people. No, they wouldn't be OP. Workboss Falcon is good lizardman. Man, yeah, he's awesome. That's his main faction too, and he's a great player to be on top of that. Workboss, a lot of SCMs will ruin Dowie. We could try one of those games at some point, Workboss, where you could bring all SCMs or just mostly. I'd have no problem playing that. I played against it before and won. Had no problem winning, actually. But, you know, player I played against maybe wasn't a high micro guy like you, because you'd be able to keep the charges going at all times, which would be the problem. The 4D dwarf build is the way to the new era. I don't know what the 4D build is. Gobbleslayer, I think SEM... Actually, I'll start this battle. Gobbleslayer, I think SEM with high stats with lots of healing kind of break the game for every faction. Ah, yeah, okay. Workboss, stay tuned, guys. 4D, okay. Gobbleslayer, I have to talk about a collaboration, a video talking about Dowie later. Yeah, I'd love to. You know what? I should almost do a round table. You know, where I could get some dwarf mains. You know. And we get some people, or just to have a chat room, you know, could get like Umaze, Shetland Apache, a Wizard Lizard, A-Move Hacker, like a bunch of people just have fun talking about the Dowie. That's actually a really good idea, Gobbleslayer. Just like a bunch of people who love dwarfs talking about the dwarfs. I think that would be really fun. Did you see that O'Rourke Boss, that there's a replay I have. Well, I haven't casted it yet. It's this Boro Croatblade, the guy who does all the single entity armies, and that's sort of his shtick, where he just cheeses nonstop. He brought a dwarf army with 2 lords, a lord and a hero, and like 8 gyro bombers. It was ridiculous. Hilarious. Okay, 56, 52. Okay. 56, 52. 56, 52. 30, 20. And we've got men-at-arms polearms with 1453. And they're back to our normal. Right, one more test to go and end that battle rematch. Oh god, Burrow Croatblade. Yeah, I think he's pretty infamous. I thought I played against him once, and apparently I played against his doppelganger, something like Invictus Mama, or something like that. I don't know, but he just brought a single entity vampire count model army against me, and then when I beat the crap out of him, he just draw kited. So, kind of like that game you sent into a Rourke Boss, where the guy was just did a draw kite. At the very end, was getting his butt kicked, and just decided to draw kite. I played him a couple times on ladder. 4 Mortis engines. This guy only had 3 Mortis engines. The guy I played, who wasn't Burrow Croatblade, this Invictus Mama, whatever it is. But it's the same idea. But, I had a video where I discussed that, because it's like, it's cancer. People call it cancer, and it is, and it's not fun to play against. But I take the line that ultimately the logic that, if CA could easily change the rules so you couldn't do that. Easy. They could change it in this patch. They have no problem doing that, but they don't. So that style of play is the fault of CA, more so than Burrow Croatblade or whatever it is. Not that I like it or approve of it, but 5626. That's not the game allows you to do that, and it doesn't have to. CA could absolutely change that very, very easily. 5626. Did I say 5626? Sigvald finished with 2388. And the Men at Arms with Pole Arms finished with 1255. Men at Arms with Pole Arms did not too bad. They only lost 45 gold there. All right, so time to summarize our data. And we're going to put in here Sigvald. And Pole Arms, Pole Arms finished with, they lost 47.5 gold, minus 47.5. The Nasty Skulkers did really, really good. They crushed it. Nasty Skulkers finished with positive 438.4. Nasty Skulkers, 438.4. Just unbelievable. The Heil Spears finished with minus 207.1. Minus 207.1. The Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons finished with positive 86.3. 86.3. The Marauder with Great Weapon finished with positive 68.7. 68.7. And the Crypt Ghouls finished with, where are they? Minus 145.7. Minus 145.7. So, first place goes to the Nasty Skulkers, and by a long ways against Sigvald. Second place, Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons. Third, by a smidge, Marauders with Great Weapons. Fourth goes to the Pole Arms. Fifth to the Crypt Ghouls, and sixth to the High Elf Spears. Interesting. So far, in terms of total gold, here, let's just sort this. So I want to sort it. Data sort. Sort it by A, descending. So far, out of our tests against the Depth Guard, the Knights of the Blazing Sun, and Sigvald, number 1 is Nasty Skulkers. Number 2 is Pole Arms. Number 3 is Dwarf Warriors with Great Weapons. Number 4 is Marauders with Great Weapons. Number 5 is High Elf Spears. Number 6 is Crypt Ghouls. And remember, Depth Guard, Knights of the Blazing Sun, and Sigvald are all very, very optimal targets for Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons in terms of none of them have AP and all of them have lots of armor. So that Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons should do great in this matchup. Right now they're in third place behind Polearms and Nasty Skulkers, although we'll say the Polearms and the Spears both got a nice boost from those Knights of the Blazing Sun being large. So the next unit I think I'm going to test is the... Did I say I was going to do the chariots? I think so. We're going to end that battle. I'm not gonna keep testing here. I think I just want to go and look at it. So the chariots will be the next. And what are... So not the Gore Beast, because the Gore Beast is anti-infantry and armor piercing. I want to look at the basic chariot. I think it's 750. Yep. So there we go, because it is got good armor at 90, and it has a decent anti-infantry bonus of 18. Very good charge bonus of 76. This is sort of another ideal target. Now, of course, they are large, and Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons do not have charge defense against large, but they do have armor piercing. So this is sort of the Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons should do pretty good here. And but is there another chariot somewhere where I could choose? Who's High Elf has good chariots too. What's an Ithelmar chariot like? Is it armor piercing? No, it's not armor piercing. It's even better. Anti-infantry? Perfect. So I'll probably use an Ithelmar chariot and then grab myself a Dwarf Warrior type of thing. An Ithelmar chariot, yeah. 110 armor, large, anti-infantry. The bonus versus infantry is 24. So this should be good. So the Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons should do very good in here. Work Boss, don't forget me. I play Dwarf. Yes! Orca Boss, of course you. You play. So I've heard you described, Orca Boss, as someone as the best player to ever take dwarfs seriously. So you will be there in our open forum discussion. And who knows, we might just have a few other guys, but I really do want people who have a love for the Dowie, so here, the Ithelmar chariot should be a very good Gobble Slayer. Lots of Cav units have high armor, low AP. I know, and that's where Dwarf Warriors should do really, really good, and particularly they should do better. This is what I'm showing where they need their attention is. They should do good against units with high armor, low AP. And they should do much better against than Nasty Skulkers or Chaos Marauders Great Weapons, because Chaos Marauders Great Weapons and Nasty Skulkers have AP, but they have no armor. So those two units should be incredibly vulnerable to the units we've tested against so far in Depth Guard, Sigvald, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And they should also be very, very vulnerable to the Ithelmar chariot. So I'm going to test that sort of next, the Ithelmar chariot, I think. I don't know if there's a better chariot to test against. I think these guys are probably pretty good. And we'll get to actually see some interesting developments when we go there. Shock Cavs are not for long engagement. I know, Rook Boss. That's why this testing is skewed, because I only put in Shock Cav for one charge, and that's what it is. Shock Cavs are for cycle charging. And where you're going to see the Shock Cav, where the Polearms and the High Elf Spears did really good against the Shock Cav, compared to the Dwarf Warriors Great Weapons, they would do even better if we let the Shock Cav cycle charge, because they have charge defense against large. Yeah, charge and impact damage. Yep. The impact damage is limited, though. Ideally should never stop. Yep, just ping-pang between units. Exactly. So this is... But what I'm trying to show by looking at Knights of the Blazing Sun is that the units that finished really good, Polearms and... here, I'm just going to resort this. Polearms and Dwarf and Spears are going to do even better. So we're looking at a relative evaluation between these units. And the ones that showed up on top would show up even higher if we let the Knights of the Blazing Sun charge over and over. So I'm going to say that's D. Column D. Ascending. Sort tools, data, sort, column D, a descending. That's what I want. Yeah. So the the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons finished above the Nasty Skulkers against the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And now this would be the relative order of them if they were cycle charging as well. So the relative order is what I'm trying to figure in that. And talking about how I did that test, because it's hard to do that test correctly. Against infantry, you can get very good data for the order. Pretty much the same way you're going to micro. Yeah, that's exactly how I'm going to I'm going to let them hit and just fight. But chariots, how they go is you hit and then you just click to the next target, and that's why they're so devastating against things. But if Longbeards with great weapons were a lot more powerful and they could hold themselves in melee against other infantry as well, you could bring them as a six pick, and they do pretty good because they have really good mass, and cavalry and chariots cannot just run through them. They can't. If you had 6 of them, but because they're not very good, bringing 6 of them would be very, very risky, and that you could just lose with no chariots against anything. So it's really devastating, right? So it just doesn't function effectively. Because the testing I'm going to do, I'll do the same way. I wonder if the Ithamar chariot will just beat the Dwarf Warriors straight up. They might. They certainly might. I'll just be curious to see. So I'll do one quick test. Have I been streaming for 2 hours? Oh my god. Doesn't feel like it. Okay, I just want to see. So we'll just leave them in there. They have a pretty massive charge mode. So these guys, I don't know why they're stopping. But you can see dwarfs have good mass if you leave them in their 6-row. But you can still, they take a ton of damage, and we'll just leave them in there, and we'll see that if our chariot. They might beat this chariot. Because the chariot it has good melee defense because of its martial prowess. Yeah, maybe. No, they're not going to beat it. But yeah, in an actual game, I would already be clicking this Ithamar chariot. It have already charged into 4 different units. But for the testing, I'm just getting a relative value of each of these units. So the Ithamar chariot beat the Dwarf Warriors great weapons very, very easily. And this is where you see, yeah, charge defense is really strong. Yeah, a good player will brace charges like a champ. You just turn and backspace. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, even though they sub, and same with miners, they can substitute for an anti-large in that they can do armor-piercing damage to chariots. The problem is they don't have charge defense against large, and no good players let their chariots just sit and fight like I've just shown. They don't. So you can't do it. The Chaos versus Bretonnian matchup is all about bracing charges with chosen halberds. Ah, okay. Interesting. So end that battle. Yeah, I just thinking about Gobble Slayer saying that should get together sort of a Dowie group to do like almost like a podcast, like a Google Hangout or something. I don't know how to do it, but I think I could, and I think that'd be fun to have a chat about the dwarf upcoming changes, because all the dwarf players I know, everyone thinks dwarfs need attention in different ways. So it's there's some things that all of us agree on, but there's some things that we disagree on. So it might be interesting to just chat about it, and it'd be fun. Like we could take Scabs drinking with dwarfs, and we could all drink and talk about dwarfs before the patch. That might actually be incredibly fun. Anyways, that'll be it for the testing. That'll be it for the stream. It's later than I thought it was going to be. We got some extra data. I will put that we'll put that on the forums, and try and get something in there so people can see the results of the fight versus the Sigfald, and hopefully that further supports that the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons do need some attention, and away we go. So with that said, thanks for everyone for being here tonight. It was fun chilling and testing, and Gobble Slayer, Rook Boss, maybe we have a Discord. I don't know if we could do it in Discord. Sure, we could do it in Discord. Don't need a Google chat. So we could do a Discord chat where we maybe could even invite I know some people to get onto Discord and chat with us and have sort of a fun live stream. So anyways, that's the stream. I'll see you all later. Have a good one.